Hello, Jordan Chariton live, Status Coup. It is Thursday, April the 4th, 2024 in the United Corporations of America, the United Corporations of America, where genocide is legal, poisoning your fellow citizens is legal, stealing their land, their bank accounts is legal. And there is no morality, as we know. It's been a very busy week. This is my first live stream as I've been juggling 75 things. I had some last minute things to do for my book, among other things. But hopefully I'll be back in the groove, being live a couple times a week. I'll give some public service announcements later. For Status Coup and what we're working on. But without further ado, excited to be joined today by a friend of the show and now a repeat congressional candidate, Jen Perelman, who is running down in the free state of Florida, whatever's left of it, in the 25th district. So you are running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who we'll get to where she's been recently. It's not in her district, trying to make working people's lives better. But Jen, for those that might be new to Status Coup or your channel, Generational Change, you ran for the first time in 2020, did a really good job considering the circumstances of a completely digital campaign during the height of COVID. Obviously, would be tough to upset an incumbent in a normal race, much less during a pandemic. But you decided to run again. For those that didn't see our first interview, the main reasons you decided to run again is the story we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Was that it? Was that the intro? That's the intro? Okay. So yeah, in 20, it was, the first time that I had run for office. We didn't really know what we were doing. And considering that, we did really well. The reason that I didn't run in 22. Well, there was a few reasons. One, learning what you learn from running, you got to build on that strategy. If you turn around and do it again and expect this different result without putting in whatever the work was that you needed to put in to get to that next level, then you're wasting your time. And also I knew we were being redistricted and we wouldn't have found out our district lines soon enough that it would have been such a pain for us to, we would have had to canvass double amount of places, not knowing where we would have district lines. So I knew it wouldn't strategically be smart, but this time I had it in my mind from the last time that if certain things align, if we're able to get certain ducks in a row, if certain positions in our, let's say, community change and hands, or seats change with new people that are more amenable to us, just a lot of things, then it would be like this perfect storm. And it really does feel like that right now. Now, obviously, I could not have, foreseen what's going on in Gaza, but I knew that for me running against her, that Israel was going to be a big issue. So I was so prepared for that to be the big issue.
Sorry to interrupt you, but for those that don't know, so the Wasserman Schultz district was District 23 in South Florida. It was, still is to a certain extent, but was a lot more older and Jewish. So a lot of older voters, a lot of Jewish voters, very vote blue Democratic Party. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been in there for 15 years, 20 years. I don't even know.
20 years.
And Debbie Wasserman Schultz, maybe once in a blue moon, long ago, kind of was progressive, but that went out the door real quick. She's a corporatist swine, and she is major Zionist. Israel could do no wrong. Let's give all our money to Israel, and also corrupt. So there's that. But now, like you said, the district has changed. So could you explain what has been, I don't want to say removed, but the parts that have been removed and what kind of voters demographically have now been expanded to the district that might make it a little bit more competitive for you? Yes, a Jewish woman, but a progressive Jewish woman.
Yeah. So the biggest change is that we no longer have any portion of Dade County, Miami-Dade County. When District 23, when I ran, it included Aventura, Bal Harbor, Surfside. So for people who are not familiar, the northernmost part of Miami-Dade County along the coast. So wealthy people and a very large Jewish population. Interestingly, that's the part of the district where I am from originally. It's, where Aventura is where I'm from. But her losing that portion of the district is pretty significant. That is a very, very Jewish affluent area. And what we gained is a municipality called Miramar, which is regular working class people. I mean, yes, there's some nice subdivisions, but it's very canvassable. It has a Latino population. It has a large Haitian population, but it's predominantly working people and canvassable. So that's the key thing. A lot of what we lost in Miami-Dade, in Aventura, you can't canvass Aventura. It's all, if not gated, high rises. So there's no way in those condos if you're grassroots, because she's flooding it with mailers and TV. So now we gained everything else that we just gained is canvassable, which definitely is our favor. Yeah.
So we'll get back to the campaign a little bit, because this is an important race. I know a lot of people, I don't care if it's Jesus, if they have a D next to their name.
I know.
I'm done. She's running as a Democrat. We'll explain why later, but let's listen to the person rather than the letter. I know, some pea-brains on YouTube like to tell you it doesn't matter who the person is. But I want to get to the latest, because nothing has dramatically changed, per se, in Israel's genocide, and we're two Jews calling it that, of Gaza. It's just that now white people that wealthy Manhattan liberals might care about are being killed. So obviously people know about the horrific mistake, air quotes, of killing 7 workers from World Central Kitchen, which is celebrity chef Jose Andres's, aide. And that's horrible. We feel for their families. Israel, oops, mistake. Even Chef Andre says not a mistake. We've been seeing a flood of the usual, which is the White House leaking to Politico, the Washington Post, and et cetera, to push their narrative that Biden's pissed without an actual change in policy, i.e. taking funding away. But here's the readout of apparently a very stern phone call today between President Biden and Bibi Netanyahu. President Biden spoke by telephone with Prime Minister Netanyahu. The two leaders discussed the situation in Gaza. Biden emphasized that the strikes on humanitarian workers and the overall humanitarian situation are unacceptable. I love how they say humanitarian situation, i.e. an ongoing genocide we're funding.
Situation.
He made clear the need for Israel to announce and implement a series of specific, concrete, and measurable steps to address civilian harm, humanitarian suffering, and the safety of aid workers. We won't tell you what steps those are. He made clear the U.S. policy with respect to Gaza will be determined by our assessment of Israel's immediate action on these steps. He underscored that an immediate ceasefire is essential to stabilize and improve the humanitarian situation and protect innocent civilians. And he urged the prime minister to empower his negotiators to conclude a deal without delay to bring the hostages home. The two also discussed public Iranian threats against Israel, blah, 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 blah. So I'll start with you. What are your thoughts? Because I basically see this as like a fake ultimatum where it was even like, if we don't, the media is reporting it, that he was saying, if we don't see a change in a couple days. So what does that mean? They'll be better for a couple days and then resort to like accidentally, quote, killing aid trucks with clearly labeled. And by the way, the IDF has infrared tech that can clearly see it in the middle of the night.
Three times, mind you, 3 times. I mean, we're so far past that. I am so enraged that I can't even have like a normal conversation about this anymore with regular people. It's so infuriating to me. So the problem with all of the letters and the harsh words and the finger wagging, and the problem with all of that is yet we're still sending them weapons. So that's the bottom line.
Should be clear. Hate to interrupt, but Colin, if you could put that up on the same day that this airstrike happened. So I'm pretty confident that they knew about it. The U.S. approved more bombs to Israel, day of the World Central Kitchen strikes. It's a long list. I won't bore you with the details, but it's billions of dollars worth of missiles and bombs on the same day. I can't say definitively, what time this strike happened and what time this approval happened, but I'm going to guess the approval went forward regardless of the killing. So That's how pissed they were. They sent billions
Right.
more. Continue.
Right. Well, no, that's the point, is that until they do something, it's irrelevant to me. Like, people are discussing what Biden said. I don't care. I really don't care. It doesn't matter what they say. And quite honestly, even if they were to stop and say, we get it now, it's, yeah, that's nice. And thank you for saving whoever is left to be saved. But yeah, you're too late. All of these people need to be tried as like war criminals. I'm just so disgusted. You can say that all you want. And by the way, it's like kind of kudos. Do you get extra AIPAC bonus points for mentioning Iran? Because that's what Debbie does. Like, she'll throw it, like, it's like almost like, I think you hit like the double jeopardy if you mention Iran. It's like maybe you get triple if you say Hezbollah. Like, that, is that what that's about? That's what, I don't know.
Here's what I see. And I know this because I worked at Fox for a dark time in my life. I worked at MSNBC. I worked in local media. I've worked at all these stations. And in general, media, sadly, they tend to care about things that when it looks like them, talks like them, or is close to them. It doesn't mean they don't care about, let's say, a natural disaster in the Midwest or people being poisoned. It just doesn't resonate with them, because then they go back to their ivory towers in Manhattan, Georgetown, neighborhood of DC, and et cetera. But I did find it interesting that Morning Joe suddenly, after 6 months, and Morning Joe is kind of an umbrella for, all the politicians watch Morning Joe. Biden and Joe Scarborough reportedly are on the phone all the time. It's just the limousine liberal set. That's what Morning Joe is. I have not, and I watched some of it, so you don't have to the audience, but I have not seen Joe, Mika, and company say enough until now. Why was it not enough when Israel, the IDF, accidentally shot at starving Palestinians rushing a food truck, the Flower Massacre? Why was it not enough Al-Shifa Hospital? I mean, we could go down the list.
They killed their own hostages.
Yes.
Where was that in the, like, I mean, I would have thought that would have been a little bit more eye-opening for people.
But before we came on air, you said, well, Joe and Mika care because it's, white people.
White people. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, to me, all of these people on the wrong side of history have made it very clear that they prioritize white life, Eurocentric life over, the other. They've made that very clear. I've been asking since the beginning, what exactly is the exchange rate? Is it 1 Israeli per 500 Palestinians? Is it 1 Israeli for 1,000? But then you have to question but they kill their own. So the truth is, they don't even really care enough about their own people if it allows them to kill more Palestinians.
Right.
That's how you know that what they're saying is absurd. So, and the fact that Mika and Joe, I actually thought when I saw Don't Look Up, how it was sort of like a farce of them. I actually thought that they were the farce. Like, I never knew that was a real thing for a really long time. Like, they're absurd to me. So, yeah, I mean, and by the way, maybe it's because, one of their donors or corporate sponsors knows Jose Andres, or, that's his personal chef, or he knows so-and-so. And so they care. And, there's, and they're white.
I just want to say to this person, because, I got a lot of shit in 2020 for voting for Biden. I stand by that vote. Oh, that's the wrong one.
I was going to say, that doesn't look that controversial.
Yeah. Are you going to vote for Biden, Jordan, Jen? I can only speak for myself. I don't need to repeat why I voted for Biden in 2020. I've said it over and over again. I don't really get people's circular obsession with like voter shaming people who vote third party or people who vote, hold their nose and vote for the Democrat. I say vote for whoever you want. Me personally, I can't in good conscience vote for him again because to me, there's a difference between being a warmonger, which Biden has always been, and you are president and signing the check for a just straight genocide, which this is. I can't in good conscience. And you know what? With Trump as president, you can say technically it would be worse because Trump, I think, would just say carpet bomb him. He would say it and stand by, but and watch it and still foster a check. But Biden isn't saying it, but essentially allowing that to happen. So I don't really see the major difference between a Biden as president vis-a-vis Israel-Gaza and Trump. Just one would give us platitudes about empathy and humanitarian aid, while the other would just say, kill them all and take the oil. But at the end of the day, it's the same amount of people dying. Am I wrong about that?
No, it is. And I could tell you, for me, Ivory, there is no universe where I will vote for Joe Biden. I have said many times, I support Dr. Cornel West. I support his campaign. I support his message. I like him out there. I like people getting emails from him. If he's not on my ballot, I will likely vote green, because I know that that'll be on my ballot. And if, somebody like Claudia de la Cruz is on my ballot, I would consider that. But no, there is no universe wherein I will vote for Joe Biden. But what's interesting is I said that long before October 7th. That's right. What's so interesting. I was already there based on so many other things.
Right. And also, just to the person who asked that, I wasn't saying you were shaming. I was just an umbrella statement, because I have the same person on Twitter for the last 4 years. Everything I tweet, it could be about something totally unrelated. You going to vote for Biden again? So there's a moral superiority complex people have. I was like, oh, you're voting for Biden. Anyway, I'm not. But as always, I'm a journalist. It's not for me to tell you who to vote for. You can vote for whoever you want. I'm not going to judge you for it. For me, I can't in good conscience vote for this. And Trump will be a lot worse, but Biden and the Democrats have themselves to blame if Trump is reelected. But with that said, Jen, to me, it just says so much. And I want to broaden this out to Ukraine too, because where I live, I was seeing at the beginning of Russia-Ukraine all these flags on, suburban homes for Ukraine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing necessarily, but I never saw them for Syria. I never saw them for Somalia. I never saw them for Afghanistan, Yemen. It just seems to be, and this doesn't mean people are bad people, but they're subconsciously, let's put the flags in front of our houses for the white people in Ukraine.
Exactly.
But not for the Palestinians in Gaza, not for the kids starving and being missiled at weddings in Yemen, and on and on. And I think people, especially the neoliberals, especially the conservatives, need to look at themselves and see, why do I have a different standard? Because when Russia was bombing marketplaces or hospitals in Ukraine, Morning Joe was aghast. CNN was aghast.
Right.
The politicians were aghast, and rightly so. But this has been going on for 6 months. They're only aghast because Jose Andres, who, I'm sorry, it's horrible what happened. I feel for their families. I feel for him. But he's kind of part of that celebrity limousine liberal crew. And kudos to him, because he went after Biden. He went after saying this was not an accident. And I'm not saying that was hard for him to do, but he's kind of part of that limousine liberal class. So it just seems like they only care when it was aid workers attached to a white celebrity chef.
Yeah, well, it's always, and here's the thing for a lot of those people, and it's generally very privileged people for the most part, that we see with the Ukrainian flags. And it's a certain type of people. And even though they are so sanctimonious about it, and they're the ones that are, at the end of the day, they're saying it matters more to me when white people die than when brown people die or whatever. But our media only feeds them that narrative too. So, for example, our media was not properly covering what was going on in Yemen. Our media is not properly covering what's going on right now in parts of Northern Africa, or so many places, because it doesn't sell, right? It doesn't sell as much. It doesn't get as much clicks. It doesn't get as much, donor class support to put out those messages. And so, over how many generations, we don't see them. It's a bunch of things.
It's kind of surprising. I'd love your thoughts on this, because, for example, Homeland, the show on Showtime, was a hit, major hit. And it was all about us, assassinating and genociding brown people all over the world. Sure, there was some propaganda within it too, but I think that people would care about that. They're just not shown. They're not all people, but for the most part, I don't think people would. I think people would want to know and see if we're bombing, weddings in Yemen or Somalia. They only see what the media wants us to see, which is a continuation of Cold War propaganda against Venezuela and name your communist or socialist country. But they're not seeing, all the genocides we have carried out or aided in all these other countries. And I will say, Colin, let's play even
I
with
just want to tell you another reason that I think that why we see it in the places we see it is that the places we see it are both economically and militarily advantageous for us to be involved in. And so we need to manufacture consent in certain places. That's what it's really about. It's about we manufacture consent when we need to be involved militarily. So if it doesn't really suit us in any way, we don't need to show that because we don't need to get people to care about, like, let's say the Sudanese. We don't need to care about the Sudanese. We need to care about Ukraine because it's a NATO situation. But we don't need to care about the Sudanese people because that doesn't benefit us. So we don't need to tell them that they're being massacred or whatever country. That's why.
And I'd like to ask you, because in America, I mean, laws are kind of flexible depending on who it is. But, there are laws that if a doctor, fucks up on surgery or malpractice, you could be sued. In some cases, you could even be have criminal penalties. If BP blows up the Gulf of Mexico, there will be fines and maybe some penalties. But in this case, even if you wanted to give Israel the benefit of the doubt, which some do, which I will not, and say it's been just one tragic mistake after another, after a certain while, if you're giving all these bombs and weapons to people who repeatedly are making, quote, mistakes that are killing, 32,000, 33,000, most of whom are women and children. At a certain point, well, maybe we need to pull money because these people aren't competent or they're not careful.
So you're funding incompetence. Which is it? Are you funding nefariousness or are you funding incompetence? Both. That's probably both. Like in all reality, it's probably both. And I also question that number. Because
I think it's a lot more. Yeah.
Well, I've said this from the beginning. Forget what the number is right now. The wheels have been put in motion for what I have said. I cannot fathom how we get out of this without 2 million dead people in the desert. So if somebody can explain to me how at this point, 6 months in, we're still arguing about terminology and as to who is or is not letting aid in, and we're still arguing about this, these people are going to die at this point. The wheels are in motion, people. So that's the problem. So you could say whatever number it is now, but that, first of all, it does include people that are missing. And so who knows what that number is, which the idea that you at this point wouldn't include people that are missing is so stupid because where would they be? So, and so, no, I don't see how this is being without 2 million dead people.
And, what really kind of bothers me the most is the elephant in the room. Everyone is wondering, even, people who are progressive, they're kind of playing dumb. Why is Biden willing to risk his presidency? Why is Biden willing to risk this? Anybody ever see who's funding his campaign? Jeffrey Katzenberg is his co-chair. Just happened to give $20 million to my old employer. But anyway, Jeffrey Katzenberg, major Zionist. Haim Saban, who did 3 fundraisers for him. He's the guy who kind of stole the Power Rangers from the Japanese and became a billionaire. He was one of Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Harry Reid's top donors forever and ever. A big Democratic Party bigwig yelled at Democratic politicians in 2018, I believe, during that onslaught of Gaza, which was a lot less severe, for condemning Israel. Well, he's given a lot of money to Biden, and Biden is still in the 1980s mentally. Well, not mentally, because he's kind of mentally not. I mean, his philosophy is still in the 1980s of money, 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 money. That's the only way we could compete. So to me, he's making the moral decision to, I'll call this a war and to hell with the consequences, but I need to raise money from these people. And the bottom line is, I'm saying this because it's true and I follow money in politics for a living. You could call it anti-Semitic if you want, but all you got to do is just look at the money. A lot of the big donors who donate to both politicians are either Jewish themselves or super Zionistic or both. And if Biden pulls money or puts conditions on that money, he believes there's going to be hell to pay politically. Republicans will attack him. He'll lose independence, this and that. But at this point, you're losing a whole younger generation, not just for this election, but perhaps permanently. You're losing a lot of independent voters. So I think you're going to lose either way. Why not just do the right thing?
because they don't care. There is that. They really don't care. And they also don't care if they lose, because they win when they lose. And if Trump wins, they fundraise. And if he does, like this, we've talked about this so many times. The people in that class of people, it doesn't matter to them one way or the other. The same corporations own them. They both are bought and paid for by the same level of whatever Zionist organizations or lobbying groups, whatever. It doesn't matter. So what does he care if he loses? First of all, I don't think he really wants to sit there another 4 years. He can barely sit up now. So I think he'd be perfectly fine riding off into the sunset and just letting it be. I really do. I don't think he cares.
And by the way, smash that like button, share this live stream. Definitely look in the description and check out Jen's campaign. We'll get back to her campaign in a little bit, but definitely smash the like button. And super chats are badly needed. If you don't know, we were just in Flint and West Virginia. We're also producing a documentary for the 10th anniversary of the Flint water crisis, which will come out at the end of April on Breaking Point's channel. We're paying Ty, our former cameraman producer, to do that. So we need your help if you can. Super chats are appreciated, or become a Status Coup member for $5 a month. That's 16 cents a day. You can become a member at statuscoup.com/join. Colin, can we play John Kirby, the spokesperson of the State Department? I don't know. He sleeps at night, and
I want him in the White House, or the State Department guy, and who the other guy. They both are like they're disgusting.
Matt Miller. Yeah, Matt.
Yes,
Miller.
the two of them.
Let's play John Kirby, who kind of sort of said there's an ultimatum, but couldn't bring himself to specify what that ultimatum is.
Remove military aid? What exactly is the threat here?
I think I've stated it pretty clearly, and I'm not gonna, as I said earlier, I'm not gonna preview steps. I'm not gonna preview decisions that haven't been made yet. But there are things that need to be done. There are too many civilians being killed. The risk to aid workers is unacceptable. Now we have certain aid organizations that are reconsidering whether they're even going to be able to continue operations in Gaza while famine looms. So there has to be tangible steps. Let's see what they announce. Let's see what they direct. Let's see what they do. But I'm not going to get ahead of that.
Good, Mary. So, I'm going to try this one more time because the president.
I reckon you would.
That's what we do. The president seems to have said to the prime minister today, make these concrete changes or else. It's the or else that I want to make clear here. Is the president threatening to withhold aid to Israel if they do not make these changes?
The president made it clear that our policies with respect to Gaza will be dependent upon our assessment of how well the Israelis make changes and implement changes to make the situation in Gaza better for the Palestinian people.
And how much time are you giving them to make these changes, to implement these concrete steps?
Again, we would hope to see some announcements of changes here in coming hours and days, and I'll leave it at that.
That's short.
Hours and days.
John, why today?
Why today?
I was about to say, is somebody going to ask why now? That person finally did, but it seems to be what, it's not horrible questions they ask, but nobody seems to be, why now? Why not when they nuked 200 Palestinians rushing to a food truck? We're only talking about deaths here. The amount of kids without legs now, people missing limbs, not to mention there is no infrastructure left in Gaza. Not to mention they could talk about, if until they dramatically expand aid, the Biden administration just made a deal with Republicans to cut off funding for UNRWA, which is the organization that provides aid. So that is devastating. It's just, to be honest with you, I wasn't alive, but this kind of reminds me just of like Jimmy Carter circa the late 1970s, just in a different way. A lot of weak sauce.
Yeah. Well, I look at that guy, that Kirby, and it makes me sad first of all, I do feel sorry for him. And I'm going to tell you why, because I think of young journalist me that came out of college and I'm like, okay, journalist. And I even loved the idea. And I remember meeting Dee Dee Myers and Marlon Fitzwater and the White House press secretaries. And I remember thinking like, how cool. And this is what this guy's been reduced to. And honestly, the toxicity that comes from that, like he'll reckon for it. Like there will be, you can't have all that in you and not have it come out one way or another. But honestly, they don't ever tell us the truth anyway. At this point, I don't know why anybody shows up to even ask them questions. I thought that the last time I saw Ryan Grimm asking a question in there, and I'm like, I don't know what you're asking him for. They're never
credit Ryan Grimm and the other guy from The Intercept. They've been asking really tough questions.
Oh, absolutely. It has nothing to do with them. It's that no matter what you ask them, they're lying. So it doesn't. The point is, you could ask them the hardest questions in the world, but if they're not going to tell you anything that's truthful, what difference does it make? So that's why I don't know why anybody shows up for those press conferences, to be honest with you. And yes,
by the way,
people.
And by the way, we should also point out, this is not talked about in the media, but I already addressed the donor issue of why Biden doesn't want to cut off funding. There's another element here that's a little in the weeds, but very true. Israel happens to be one of the premier countries for tech. Yeah. Israel has made itself a premier country over the last decade or so for technology. Other than Silicon Valley, Israel has some of the largest number of tech startups in the world. And the United States and a lot of Wall Street people have investments in those. Did you know that? Did Joe and Mika tell you that? So it's all one big cesspool called the United Corporations of America. And maybe I'll make a United Corporations of Israel shirt. My father might disown me, the Zionist he is. But it's just really, really disgusting. And I have to say, we've already established it, but I just want to put on my forehead. And if I was in that room, I would be kicked out because I'd say, I need an answer. Why now? Why now? Because I got to tell you, even if Biden pulled money right now today,
right,
the damage is done. These lives are not coming back.
No.
The people who are survive there are traumatized for the rest of their lives. I don't really know how you could rebuild Gaza unless we foot the bill completely. And I don't see that happening. The damage is done. And I honestly think, short of whatever happens with Trump's criminal cases, this and that, I think it's kind of the reverse of 2020. I think a paper bag could have beat Trump in 2020. I really do, because of his horrible handling of COVID, among other things.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much any Republican could beat Biden right now. And I think Trump right now will beat him, because I don't think the majority of young people, even those uncommitted voters in Michigan and other states, I don't really see them being like, all right, well, at least he did the right thing now. I mean, the numbers are too high. The damage is too long. It's too little too late, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. They cannot come back from this politically. The people that are angry about this in particular, it will not matter. It will not matter. You could do a whole bunch of cool things between now and November. They won't. But even if they did, it won't matter. And as somebody who has been very much working amongst and within the Muslim community down here since, it's been like a Ramadan whirlwind, but you're not getting them back from this. They're just not coming back to them, no matter what. And that is just a fact. So, it is sort of, in my mind, if those are the voters, and you would know this better than me just from all your time in Michigan. But we have 75,000 Muslims here in Broward County. The majority of them are Democrats. They're not having it with Joe. I'm just, and he barely won Broward County in 20. So, and that's not that he's winning Florida anyway, but
yeah. I want to show this other video here, Colin, if you can. This is the aerial footage of, it says shocking footage of Israeli troops firing on Palestinians seeking aid in northern Gaza. So this is, I believe, from today. So this is still going on. So let's play it if there's audio.
الحصول على ما يعودون به من نذر يسير علّه يبقي الجوع يحوم قربهم دون أن يقتلهم.
Yeah, so obviously it's in Arabic, but it says shocking footage of Israeli troops firing on Palestinians seeking aid in northern Gaza.
Where are you reading that? Are you reading Arabic now? Where are you reading that?
No. Hold on. That's funny.
Jeez Louise. I'm like, how is he?
Colin, could you show the tweet?
You played it like there's sound, and I'm like, I'm waiting for translation. I'm like, that's really not that helpful, but okay.
Yes, I've learned Arabic
I was
overnight.
going to say, are you reading that?
All right. Colin's getting the tweet. So this is from, I guess, Al Jazeera, which Israel is now trying to ban within Israel. So tough shit to the Palestinian Arabs. But basically it says shocking footage of Israeli troops firing on Palestinians seeking aid in northern Gaza. After aid drops, Israeli soldiers deliberately kill a civilian carrying aid and prevent medical help until his death. The Euromedical HR yesterday issued a report on Israel's targeting of aid-seeking civilians. So this is after they just killed these 7 aid workers. So at a certain point, in America, we all condemn, well, not all, but most of us condemn these trigger-happy police officers who shoot first, ask questions second. It doesn't seem like the memo of, less mistakes, be more careful is getting through there in the IDF. And they don't care. And why would they care? All they have seen is lip service from the American president. But I got to tell you, I think unless something radically, forget American politics for a second, unless something dramatically changes quick, and I just don't see a scenario where Biden pulls aid from Israel. I mean, I think you're going to have closer to, I don't know about 2 million, but I think you're going to.
Where are the rest of them going then? Because if there's 2 million people and they,
well, I'm talking about deaths. If this continues, I think you're going to have hundreds of thousands of people dead, not to mention wounded.
But what I'm saying is, where are the rest of them going, and how are they going to ever not die? I want to know how any of them are not like, that's what I want to know. Right. What is the plan? Like, how is this ending without all of them dead? It's people in a box that are not let in and out, and there's no food and no water. Right. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but so like when people say hundreds of thousands, okay, so then where are the remaining survivors? Because they're still not letting them out or putting, like, where are they going? So right. I don't understand.
And I want to thank you, Mr. Anderson, just gifted 10 Status Coup memberships. Ooh. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Colin will come on later to explain how that gifting stuff works, because I still don't know.
Nice.
But we need you, folks. If you're new here and don't know, we are, and Jen would corroborate this, the only independent, keyword independent. We don't get any money from the remaining Koch brother. We don't get any money from George Soros. We don't get any money from the Zionists funding Israel. Our money comes from you, the audience. We're the only outlet on the ground. We have covered, John Farina has almost covered 40 ceasefire protests in New York and DC. He has been covering sometimes 3 or 4 a week. And he has been live sometimes for 4 hours. I know, because I just got the bill. I didn't realize, because, we were way over our data plan. And we were getting charged $2,000 for these live streams. But I don't want to say yes, it's worth it. But it was very expensive to be live. But we're the only, CNN's not live from these rallies. MSNBC's not live. No other independent outlet is live. No. So when you wonder why I'm asking you for this funding, the live view, which helps us go live, to go live for an hour costs money. To go live from 4 hours costs a shit ton of money. To send them to DC costs money. Tina covered protests in LA. We are covering it because most other outlets are not. And most other outlets, but oh my God, did you see the footage? We covered the protests outside Biden, Obama, and Bill Clinton's mega fundraiser.
Yeah.
Where literally the corporate media was lined up with their cameras ignoring literally hundreds of protesters. I don't know. I took one journalism class. I'm glad I didn't take more. And I was told proximity, numbers, relevance, the 3 Ps or whatever. Well, proximity right across the building from the fundraiser, and numbers, thousands of protesters. We're to the point where a guy was screaming, "Corporate media, turn your fucking cameras. There's a giant fucking protest." Anyway, I digress.
That was so funny to me. It's so funny.
But we have been covering these protests, and John continues. I mean, I lost count, but it's definitely between 30 and 40 that he has covered. So please support us. It costs money, statuscoup.com/join. But I want to show one more clip. This is significant because this is Biden's BFF in the Senate, Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, who's just as corrupt.
That says a lot right there. That says a lot right there.
He took over for Biden in the Senate when Biden became vice president. So he's like the new senator representing MBN, whatever they called Biden, the senator MBNA senator, the guy who was representing all the banks. But this is Chris Coons, who's kind of Biden's voice in the Senate. He's senator of Delaware and very close to Biden. Let's listen to what he said on CNN.
You've had words with Benjamin Netanyahu. The president has had words with Benjamin Netanyahu. At what point does the policy change? Do you support a change in policy instead of a carrot, instead of words, a stick, saying to Israel that in order to get military aid, you have to change your tact? When does that happen?
I think we're at that point. I think we're at the point where President Biden has said, and I have said, and others have said, if Benjamin Netanyahu, prime minister, were to order the IDF into Rafah at scale, they were to drop 1,000-pound bombs and send in a battalion to go after Hamas and make no provision for civilians or for humanitarian aid, that I would vote to condition aid to Israel. I've never said that before. I've never been here before. I've been a strong supporter of Israel the whole time I've served in Congress. We just appropriated another $3.3 billion of support in the last appropriations bill we did. The challenge is to make it clear that we support the Israeli people, that we want to and will continue to have a strong and close relationship with Israel, but that the tactics by which the current prime minister is making these decisions don't reflect the best values of Israel or of the United States.
So things have gotten so bad. For the first time, you were saying, yes, we will put conditions on military aid.
I don't know. Maybe her hair was too tight there, but the obvious follow-up, why going into Rafah is the red line, but not northern Gaza, where they killed tens of thousands of people? Why is it now, if it goes into Rafah without, concern for casualties, this and that? I mean, it's just so obvious. Again, like we've been talking about, it's just the kind of people they just killed. That's the red line. You killed the wrong people this time.
Yeah, I mean, that's what gets people riled up, certainly over here more. But also, I think that there's no red line because they've never had a plan from the beginning, and they're just going along for the ride on this. Like they really don't care. They do not care. It's just very obvious to me they don't care. You at this point, it's laughable that we're still even discussing like that this is defense or these are mistakes. So then they're that incompetent. I mean, it's just, I just don't believe it. This is absurd at this point.
And I gotta say, and I would say this, I've said this directly to my mother, who I love, and if you're watching, sorry. When you say to me, but what about the hostages? Why is nobody talking about them? This is why nobody's talking about. I care about the hostages, the protests we've been covering. Even the pro-Palestinian protesters have called for a ceasefire and the release of the hostages. They're innocent too.
You know who doesn't care? You know who doesn't care about the hostages? Because I know who doesn't care about the hostages. Israel doesn't care about the hostages. They've killed their own hostages. If you have hostages somewhere and you don't know where they are and you're just indiscriminately bombing, de facto, you don't care about your hostages. So I don't know why, like, it's so funny to me that Debbie Wasserman Schultz talks about the hostages when Israel killed their own hostages.
Well, speaking of, great segue. Oh, and if you have that, this is where Debbie Wasserman Schultz is hanging out as we drop missiles on food aid workers. If you have that, I sent you Debbie in Israel. If you don't,
she was just there. Yes, and a nice 8-pack funded trip. Yeah.
So that's Debbie Wasserman Schultz all the way to the right. And for those new to the program here who don't know all the history, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, longtime Florida congresswoman, very corrupt, takes money from all the usual suspects, especially Big Sugar down in Florida. But she was the DNC chair in 2016 who didn't throw her thumb on the scale, threw her entire body on the scale to rig the 2016 primary for Hillary Clinton and rig it against Bernie Sanders. She had to resign in disgrace on the eve of the Democratic National Convention. Democratic Party kind of sort of backbenched her for a little bit because she was kind of like a leadership figure for a while. So she's not as prominent as she used to be, but she's still kind of in the Democratic Party corporatist cabal. And she is a major Zionist, and she is one of the leading figures who uses the rhetorical reverse psychology of anti-Semitism. If you criticize Israel, can you kind of talk about that? Because you're running against her, and that's been her go-to move. Even calling you a Jew anti-Semitic for criticizing Israel. That's like calling us, unpatriotic if we criticize the Iraq war at the height of it. So you're anti-Semitic for criticizing the government of Israel. How's that work, Jen?
Well, first of all, when you have no substance and you have no policy, all you have is labeling, name calling, and fear mongering. That's all you have. So for her to play the anti-Semitism card is one of her favorites. It's just constantly putting it out. She uses it as a weapon and a shield. It's really fascinating. I've been watching it for years with her, how she uses that to manipulate people, to control people, to get her way, lots of things. And, really, it's just so old. It's so old. But, this, she's always in Israel for AIPAC trips. The fact that she was there throughout a chunk of Ramadan and over Easter did not go unnoticed in my district. I will have you know that there are very many people, Palestinian Christians and Muslims and people that have been very aware that is where she has been. So it's not just, my opinion that this is what her priority is, right? So that's a huge difference. And it isn't just that, it's all special interests. It's all of it. It's totally being on the corporate payroll. It's being an insider trader. It's just ridiculous at this point. It really is. I don't understand how people defend this in any way.
And we're going to get back to your campaign, but I want to show one more thing, because I got to tell you, Colin, I just sent it to you whenever you have time to put that up on the screen. I take the L for Tulsi Gabbard. I've been totally honest. I have a great bullshit detector, but it failed me with Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
I would say it did not fail me with one John Fetterman, because as Colin could tell you and private conversations we had, I was not particularly enthused about going to cover Fetterman's race for Senate in November of 2022. But I said, all right, we're a news outlet. We got to go cover something. And he's, I guess, the most progressive-ish. But I in my gut, I knew like something doesn't smell right here. He's not for Medicare, for all this and that. Boy, is this guy pulled a 180.
Oh.
He might as well just, smear some hummus on his head and call him fucking, Prime Minister Fetterman. In this war against Hamas, no conditions for Israel. He responded to the news that Biden kind of sort of gave a fake ultimatum. I don't know if this guy is like running to be president of AIPAC or just like realized he got in there by bullshitting that he was kind of progressive, but thinks he could stay in there if he just completely moves to the corporate left. I mean, he's kind of good on some labor issues, but overall, he's further to the right than some Republicans on this. And so much to the point that I was wondering, why is Fetterman's office not responding to me? Because I was reaching out to Ohio senators and Pennsylvania senators after that hearing where the NTSB chair basically said, oh, yeah, Norfolk Southern intentionally nuked East Palestine and lied to the Ohio governor about it. John Fetterman's people didn't respond to me because his 3 top communication staffers have left within the last month. His 3 top communications people,
interesting,
including Joe Cavello, who was a Bernie guy, worked on Bernie's campaign, was Fetterman's press secretary, I believe, really instrumental to helping him get elected despite the stroke, despite his obvious challenges after the stroke. 3 of his top people have left because of this. Because clearly, I mean, you can't really say, all right, he's progressive on everything but Israel. This is not even progressive for I know conservatives who are calling out what Israel is doing. Your thoughts on that before we get back to your campaign?
Oh, I said a long time ago, Fetterman's been dead to me for a while. And at this point, I actually would prefer Dr. Oz. Like a long time ago, I would have started preferring Dr. Oz. And I actually think Dr. Oz...
And his, what was that? His charcuterie board? How do you pronounce that?
Charcuterie board.
Charcuterie. Sorry. That's how cultured I am. Yeah.
Charcuterie board. But yeah, I mean, but I at least look at him as somebody that would probably have a certain amount of sympathies to what's going on right now. And apparently Fetterman does not have any. So that is, yeah, I'm just glad at this point that we never had him on the show. And it was because we couldn't get him on the show. I'm not saying it's like I knew any better, but I am glad that at this point that he never got on our show.
So let's move into your campaign, because obviously, I mean, I never bought into this and I got shit for this. There was, during the Jimmy Dorification of the left, which I believe is starting to dissipate a little bit because he's obviously a right winger. But there was this I don't care if Jesus is running, if they're running as a Democrat, I ain't voting for them. And I always said, okay, I'm not happy with the Democratic Party. I cover them relentlessly in a critical manner. But at the end of the day, you can't, throw out the baby without the bathwater. And I'm going to look at the candidate. We can't have a crystal ball, but I'm not going to just say everyone's going to be like AOC just because the X, Y, and Z congressperson disappointed me. But to be clear, in South Florida, if you ran as an independent, you're wasting your time. Is that correct?
Yes. And that's what people really have to understand. And first of all, I so hate labels. I wish we had no parties. I'm a registered Democrat in Broward County, Florida. We have closed primaries. And if you are not registered as a Democrat, you don't participate in politics here. It's that simple. There is no running as an independent in a general and winning in this race. That does not happen. It's not possible. So, whether or not people want to accept that.
If you want to know, Tim Canova ran in 2016 before he turned MAGA. Tim Canova ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz in 2016 as a Democrat. He lost by 14 points. And to be fair, they screwed him.
Yes.
And they literally illegally threw out the paper ballots in 2016. So it's very likely he did not lose by 14 percentage points. It's possible he won for all I know.
Correct.
But he was literally and genuinely screwed. And it was an election crime. They threw out the paper ballots, but nobody went to prison. Shocker.
No.
But then he was understandably pissed off about that. He decided to run again in 2 years as an independent. He went from losing by 14%, which for a first-time challenger trying to take on Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it's not horrible.
No, he had $4 million, though, and an endorsement from Bernie, I might add, in 2016.
Right. But he ran as an independent, same district. I think he got 5%.
Yeah. And he was probably screwed then too. I don't doubt that. But the reality is you just can't. We have 14% voter turnout in a primary, people. It's a blue district. That's just how it is. It's just how it is. And so this is the way to do it. And I get it. People are disillusioned. They're pissed. They're disappointed. They put their faith in people. And it turns out to be that they're not what they say they are. I get it. I feel the same way. I would suggest that if, for me personally, I have like 3.5 years of content on my podcast that is very clear as to who I am on different things. I've never I'm pretty consistent, about where I stand on issues. And the only reason I am affiliated with the Democratic Party, besides just strategically, is I registered as a Democrat when I turned 18 in 1989. And that was what my parents were. That's what my grandparents were. And, working people. So that was that was what I knew. Democrats were working people, Republicans, it was more management. And that was just my mindset. I get we're not there anymore. I get it. I assure you, I get it. But that I still technically would probably be closer to them in theory if they were, what they even say they are. So it is what it is.
Well, I also think there's something to be said in general. At the end of the day, yes, I don't take anything away from people who are running third party on the local level, national level. I get, well, how are we going to build an independent candidate or a third party candidate if there's not a few who take the lumps? I get that. But you're also asking somebody like Jen to basically give up their life for a year or two, piss away a lot of their own personal money because nobody runs and doesn't piss away some of their own money for a vanity campaign.
Right.
For, no chance to win. I mean, that's a lot to ask in general if it's working class people running for these seats to run knowing you have no shot because of the demographics of the district, because of the registration. And to the point Jen made, most of these places, you're lucky if you get between 13 and 20% voter turnout in primaries. In Nina Turner's race in Cleveland, both times, it was really horrible voter turnout. So, I would love a third party candidate. And I think Cornel West made a mistake leaving the Green Party, frankly. I hate that Jill Stein and Cornel West are both running. I think they're monopolizing each other. And I know there's a beef or whatever. I'll leave that for a separate. But I'd rather you run with a chance to win. And then, if people want to say, well, what's the point? She's just going to join the squad and sell out. All right. Well, if you think that about every candidate and you just that sure, then why even watch anything? Just check out if you think it's all for naught. Now let's get to the campaign. You run against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Tell us where things stand right now. We established that the district is different. There are more Black voters in the district now. There's more Hispanic voters, the more younger voters.
Yes.
I don't know if there's been any polling. Probably not. I don't know if the media is covering you at all. Probably not. But where do you see things standing now? And the primary is in August.
August 20th. We have an August 20th primary. And I want to be clear for people about the, when you think about this in terms of strategy and how you're running, and, the people that are in a position where they think that I should stand on principle and run not as a Democrat and take a stand on that. That's a very privileged position to be in. And I'm going to tell you why, because the amount of people that are supporting me in this district, people that are vulnerable, people that are sending me $1 here and $1 there, those people want me to win. Those people want to unseat Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And I have been studying the numbers in this district for about 15 years. This is how it has to be done. So I would actually feel like a total piece of shit if I campaigned just as a matter of principle to take a stand against the Democratic Party and took money from people who really want me to help and do something. See, that is privilege. And that is unacceptable. So what I'm doing is in the best interest of winning this seat for those people. So let me be clear. It's not my ideology. Anyway. So wait, go back to what you were saying. I'm sorry. I got kind of
that's okay.
off on it.
I was basically saying, where do things stand? I don't know if there's any, I doubt there's polling. I doubt the local media is covering you.
Right.
But where, we know, because you and we should give a shout out to Peter Hager, Peter Hager, your co-host and longtime Debbie Wasserman Schultz enemy. I think Peter Hager, honestly, if you gave him Peter, if you had, you're going to win the Powerball tonight or unseat Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I'm not sure he wouldn't take unseating Debbie Wasserman Schultz. That's the hatred. Listen,
I actually would tell you this is what he would do. He would win the money and he would put it all towards beating Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
That's fair. But tell people where things stand. Cause we have people watching in Florida or people outside of Florida that might want to support in other ways.
And everybody can support. That's very, very exciting if everybody supports. I call our monthly donors or shareholders. I've just started calling people the shareholders.
And the link to Jen's website's in the description under the video, but go on.
So one thing that's been really interesting to me this time versus last time. So in 20, obviously no name recognition. We were starting from nothing. And it was me just pounding the pavement, getting people to listen, getting people to pay attention. And this time around, people are really reaching out to us. So I noticed that's a huge difference. I also noticed locally, the difference in how I'm treated in communities and amongst local electeds is very, very different. Yes, I still get the occasional side eye from a Debbie sycophant. It happens. But for the most part, it's just a whole different thing now. When I walk in, I could go to, for example, at my Legal Women Voters Luncheon, and I went by myself because, the tickets are not inexpensive and it's just my ladies' lunch thing. And so I went, and 4 years ago, when I went to the lunch, it was everybody knew who I was. They knew I was running and they didn't even know what they should say to me. This time, the mayor of Plantation invites me over to his table and introduces me to his family. It's a very different situation. Also, do you think politically
among the power brokers of Florida, the elected people,
yes,
things are turning a little bit against Miss Wasserman Schultz?
Oh, for sure. She's lost 4 mayors in our district. And by lost, I mean, they didn't die, but they were replaced by people that are not her people and people that I'm friendly with and people that I feel comfortable with. So there has been a change. There's also been a certain amount of credibility, just being a fixture in the community and serving and doing different things and showing up for other community leaders. Like that mayor is someone that I canvassed for, so that's sort of the grassroots version of they owe me, right? That's it's not the big dollars that you don't know, but it's building community of people that want to work together and want to make things better. So they know that their people would be better off with someone like me serving. And so people that are truly in their municipal seats for the right reasons, they get this, they see it. They don't want that. A lot of people, like our mayor, he's a total mayor. He doesn't need the job. He actually is like the man. He likes to serve. He's a public servant. Like those people, they want somebody that's a real person to be trying to help their district. So I think there's that. Yeah.
And let's also get to, obviously we've talked a lot about the Israel-Gaza situation, but the district, I mean, people think about Miami, South Florida as kind of glitzy, wealthy. There's a lot of parts of it that aren't doing so well. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz hasn't done jack shit for any of those working class people or minorities for the last 20 years. She has signed off on every corporate welfare you could imagine, every dollar to Israel and elsewhere. I don't see her bringing much back by way of labor, working class issues. She's against Medicare for all. So talk about, what would be your top priorities? Obviously, you're running on Israel, but what could you actually get done in this dysfunctional cesspool that is Congress?
Yeah, it's bad. So first of all, and just regarding our demographics, is that I have come to realize that there are 75,000 Muslims in Broward County. And the vast majority of them are registered Democrat, and the vast majority of them haven't traditionally voted in primaries. And the vast majority of them are furious right now. So, and even if half of those are in our district, because we're only about half of Broward, that's a population that has not traditionally participated in primary voting, that is extremely organized and motivated. And some of them, and I am happy to say this, are wealthy. So, sometimes you piss off wealthy people too, and that is helpful to us. So, I mean, that is one of those things that changes the dynamic as well. But my key issues, well, I'll say this, and guys, go on gen2024.org and look at the issues. But really, the top three for me are healthcare, housing, and jobs. I am a proponent of the 21st century economic bill of rights. I believe in a federal job guarantee. And I know that those things are kind of, maybe a little far-fetched, but you got to start planting the seeds for it, just like Bernie did with Medicare for all, right? You got to start pushing it somewhere. So federal job guarantee.
And obviously, this is South Florida.
Yes.
The climate change, the climate inferno.
Yes.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I don't particularly see leading the charge for a Green New Deal or anything of substance. Talk about, your philosophy on climate issues.
Right. Climate. And, we are very vulnerable here and people don't realize it. So yes, the fact that she's into fracking and all that is not, doesn't go over very well with the Sunrise Movement. But, Florida is in a very, very precarious situation, and it is very intersectional. So, for example, the climate crisis that we're having, and when you see buildings collapse like you saw a few years ago in Surfside, that is going to be a more and more common problem. And that leads to what we now have is this mass insurance crisis, because insurance companies won't cover places down here. So it's connected, and all of this is crushing seniors who don't even necessarily live in the buildings that we're talking about, but because insurance is so high, they are going to be priced out of their condos that they own, and they can't afford the assessments, or the elderly people on fixed income on the beach that can't afford the assessment that it would cost them. If you're living in a, place that you've had for 30 years in your condo and you're on a fixed income, you can't afford a $40,000 assessment. These people can't afford that. So what's going to happen? They're going to have to sell their homes. But where are they going? They're not going to be able to move anywhere laterally with the way the market is right now. It's basically taking people out of what would essentially be a rent control situation for some of them that they've had, and putting them out into the free market of housing right now. It's just, that is what is happening. And it is tied to climate. The poisoning of our water, we've had that for years, not in the same way as what you have been covering, but regarding the blue-green algae and the red tide. And a lot of that does come from big agra and big sugar in Central Florida, which of course, is toxifying everything. But we have what we have everywhere else. We have a greed and corruption problem. We have overdevelopment. We have people ripping out our mangroves, and they're supposed to rebuild and replant the sea grapes and the mangrove, and they don't. We have, people dredging out things to build where we have no place for estuaries, and all the way not even realizing that the things like the dunes and the mangroves actually help with the erosion problem. So when you get rid of those to put buildings and stuff there, it's just not a smart move. So we definitely have a real big problem here with all of that. And the key problem is corruption, corporate greed. You've got how many companies buying up all of our housing. They don't care that they sit vacant. They don't care that they write off losses. And you've got people that are struggling to be able to afford a place to live, and these people are jacking up prices. It's,
Right.
this is the kind of stuff that has got to be dealt with. And most of the housing stuff is state, but there are definitely things at a federal level that can be done to protect people from predatory insurance and not having rent control, giving renters credits. Like, there's definitely things that can be done on the federal level. Ilhan Omar has a really great housing bill that she's been pushing that I'm very impressed with. So, I mean, there are things that, another person added to would be helpful, but Florida's going to be underwater in 20. Like, people don't buy down here south of Lake Okeechobee. Stay north of Lake Okeechobee.
And breaking news. Look what happens when you be a little stern with Prime Minister Netanyahu. The Israeli Security Cabinet approved the opening of the Erez crossing with the Gaza Strip for the first time since October 7th in order to allow more humanitarian aid to go in. So that, I believe, is the cross. Is that the crossing with Egypt? The Erez crossing? I think it is.
So. I think so.
This is not enough, to be clear, but it does kind of show you if you somewhat threaten money. I think you should go all the way and just pull the money. But now all of a sudden, they could open a crossing to bring humanitarian aid in just with a threat, a vague threat at that. I digress. All right. So what do you need, Jen? Do you need volunteers? Obviously,
we need
money.
Everything. We need everything. Let's answer Tony D. Florida wants to use radioactive waste to pave roads. That's new to me. I'd have to research that and talk to people. We'd have to have some focus groups. I don't know. But if it's something that would be, I don't know. I'd have to learn more about that because that's new to me. Do you know anything about that?
No. First I've heard it.
Yeah, I don't know.
There is radioactive waste leaking all over the place in America, among other contaminants.
Right, but for all I know, this is some method of containing it in a substance where it doesn't leak and maybe using it. I don't know. That's why I'm saying I wouldn't want to just jump on have an opinion where I don't know.
Shocking on YouTube. You don't want to jump on it with a hot take if you don't know.
No,
something.
I don't understand what that means. It could be good, could be bad. I don't know.
But before we go, tell people, we know the website,
Jen2024.org. We are on Twitter and Instagram at Jen for Congress 2024. And guys, we are having a fundraiser tonight with Nina Turner. It is, you go on my website, you could get tickets for it. Oh yeah, there it is. And so, yeah, it's going to be a really interesting discussion and people are going to be able to ask questions. And I think it'll just be really fun. So if you guys come on in, donate some money, have a nice little chit chat with me and Nina, and by the way, Nina is definitely worth the price of admission because she really does know how to give a good talk. I'm saying she's really good. So
and to be clear, you could watch on Zoom too. So it's a digital thing.
Oh yes. It's a Zoom fundraiser. Go on the website, get tickets. I'd love to see everybody later. And yeah, I think it's going to be fun, but we need help. We need donations. I need shareholders and we need people and really it's also very psychological for me. People don't realize that. I did all my thank you calls between yesterday and today. And I'm calling people who donated $1. I'm calling people and thanking people. And, it really helps me psychologically to know that people support because there is a lot of hate involved here. And that's why I'm not on social media, but I still get it because I'm still in public and I still hear it. But there's a lot of hate. So just knowing that people are supportive is very helpful. So yeah, follow the campaign, share the campaign, check out Generational Change on YouTube.
And Colin, if you could put the link to the fundraiser tonight in the description too, that way people could click on that easily for tonight's fundraiser. You could tell my wife that. She thinks I'm looking at YouTube comments constantly. For my ego, I tell her, no, I'm looking at the YouTube comments to know that I'm actually making a difference because a lot of times I want to fucking scream.
Yes.
I think I'm not making a difference at all. So I read the YouTube comments to know, people actually depend on this and care.
Yeah. And you look at the ratio of it. So for example, if you go look at a typical Debbie Wasserman Schultz tweet and look at her ratio, and you look at if I put something out and you look at my ratio, that's a very different vibe. And I appreciate that. And if it were the other way around, I would never be doing this. If I thought people disliked me that much, I'd say, clearly, I have to learn to read the room. I am just not the right person for this job. But, some people don't want to do that. Some people don't want to have some self-awareness.
Absolutely. Let me read some super chats and whatnot. Rashid became a Status Coup YouTube member. Thank you, Rashid. We need you. Jen needs money. We need money. So please.
And I support Jordan. I've been a Status Coup member since you had members.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Balanced NOK 100, approximately $10. Keep up the good work. Why, thank you. Appreciate that foreign currency. Alone some $5. RNC and DNC conspire, collude, take turns. They yawn. Sad but true. Tony, $5. I believe Biden loved Israel even before he was paid to. Good to see Jen here. I'll watch her show tonight. Thank you, Tony D.
Yeah, we have a live after our fundraiser. Peter's making me stay up till forever tonight.
Oh, that's right. Tony, another $10. We send dollars to Israel and AIPAC by politicians. So USA politicians are double dipping. By the way, I would say AIPAC is just as powerful as the NRA in its heyday. AIPAC
I think it's worse. I actually think it's worse. The books that I've read about the Israel lobby, I don't know if you've read Mearsheimer's book, it's literally called The Israel Lobby. That is like basically the encyclopedia of the history of the Israel lobby. And it's like, no matter how bad I thought it was, it's worse. It's one of those things. And it's just, they're definitely extremely powerful, and it's who they're tied to. And it's a problem. Why aren't they registered as foreign agents? Why don't they have to register as foreign agents, but every other foreign lobbying group does?
Mr. Anderson, again, a great gift. Thank you for gifting 10 Status Coup memberships. That's really appreciated, with the UAW in the logo. Appreciate that. We definitely appreciate all gift memberships. Das Fleiss, member for 6 months. As a European, I love that Trump stopped TPP, but I don't want a second Trump term. P.S. I hope Jen wins again against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I want DWS out of politics for good. I agree. She is a particularly vile cesspool politician. Tony D, $10. Jen, we read this one.
Yeah.
Go look it up. Das Fleiss, 11.99 euros. I hope Republicans repeal the 22nd Amendment, which would mean more Obama terms. Oh, boy. I'm not a fan of Obama politically, but I believe he would wipe the floor with Trump. I appreciate the 11.99, but I cannot get on board with more Obama terms.
No.
I think Obama's second term actually opened the door for Trump, to be honest, because people...
It's just not good.
Yeah. I get the sentiment, like, you don't want Trump, but we could get somebody better.
Obama's busy on Martha's Vineyard. He's busy.
Right. Or lecturing protesters. Also, thank you, Ed, $10 donation on our website. I'm with you.
Nice.
I think he means Jen, but thank you for the donation. Super chats are appreciated, but donation, YouTube rips us off. Take 30% of your super chats if you don't know. So if you donate directly to the website, we get most of that. So that's statuscoup.com/donate.
Yeah, I hate competing with you for money, but I will say, for people who want to donate and do not want to go through Act Blue, I hear you, and I knew that ahead of time. So there is a way on my website. You just scroll to the bottom and people can donate. Through Act Blue.
All right. If you got $5 today, I'll give it to Jen. You can give it to Jen's campaign rather than Status Coup.
I just know that there's a lot of a lot of the same people that don't like that I'm running as a Dem, or certain people that don't like Dems and they don't want to support Act Blue. And I totally get that.
Yeah. All right. Got to go watch my baby. Definitely watch Jen. She's going live on her channel now. Generational Change.
Oh, no, we're not going now. Now, fundraiser at 8, show afterwards at 9:30, guys.
Excuse me. Stand corrected. 8 o'clock fundraiser. The link is in the description, as is her website. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we will be covering another Palestine ceasefire protest tomorrow. I believe it's at 5 o'clock Eastern. So you could come back for that.